Oh, and good evening, Daniel. I wasn't looking at that end of the screen.
Hey, Jerry.
Oh, I really didn't see her.
Is Pauline new? Did she just got on? No, I was saying, I know, I was trying to figure out whether you were part of the 10 or did you just get on?
I just counted 10.
Looks like we have 11. $11.
That's enough, right? That's a quorum. Aren't we 20? Aren't we?
I think 12 is the quorum, but now we have 12, so we have a quorum. Because
Okay,
Van just got on.
good.
So, for those who didn't hear, David is running a little late today, so he suggested we start the land use portion first, and so we will. And we have a application for a variance, are the folks who'll be making that presentation here?
Yes, we are. Hi, how are you?
Hi.
Elise from
Are we
Eric
treating
Palatnik.
this-
Oh, sorry.
There were 3 items. Are we treating it as one presentation?
I'm doing one presentation, but there are 3 variances and I'll explain why we're seeing
Okay, as
them.
long as I know that I'm listening to all 3 right.
To clarify, we are going to need a vote on each individual variance.
Fine.
But we're going to take care of it all in one meeting, so you don't have to meet me 3 times. And then the architect, Mr. Lin is on, and the owner, Mr. Fasili, is on as well. I saw him. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. Share. Okay. Here. Did that work? Okay, here we are. Okay, hold on. So there are 3 different variants today, all owned by one owner, and they are, so this is an application or 3 applications under zoning resolution section 7201 to permit a residential use in an M11 zoning district contrary to 4210. So 12 Coles, 13 Laqueer, I'm pronouncing that right? Laqueer, okay.
Everybody
I got a little
calls
scared.
Yes.
And 375 Columbia Street are all separate variances. They're all small residential spaces, which I'll explain in a second. And they're all owned by the same owner. And we thought about potentially combining them, but when we looked, you can see how oddly shaped they are and how they connect. No, putting one building there never really worked when we thought about all the different ways we could make the best use of this land. So that's why it's 3 separate variances. So here we go. Okay. I'm going to go, when I speak about each of them, just to the rendering. So I'm going to flip a little back and forth so you can see what it's all about. But you can see where the site is, what's around it, but I'll come back to these slides. I just want to give. Good. Okay. Oh, here we are. So here. Okay. So first I'll do 13 Laqueer. So this is the rendering for 13 Laqueer. The proposal is for a use group 2 residential use and the development of a new 4-story, 4,481.92 square foot, 2.52 FAR residential building with 4 units. Oh, that's strange. Okay. And no parking spaces. Oh, okay, because it's this one. I see right here. As shown on the proposed plan. So I'll go to the proposed plans for the Laqueer one. Okay. Laqueer. This is Columbia. Sorry. think this one's the Lequer. Okay. As shown on the proposed plans, the proposed building would rise to a total height of 40 feet. There would be a rear yard of 30 feet and 0 side yards. So it'd be built to the lot lines. The premises is unimproved currently and is characterized as an infill lot on a subject lot that is primarily residential. 13 Lequer Street was occupied by 2 dwelling units from at least 1886 to the 1950s. Sometime between 1950 and 1969, one of the dwellings was demolished, and sometime between 1969 and 1977, the other dwelling was demolished. The lot has remained undeveloped since the time and has occasionally been used for automobile parking and storage. So it is totally vacant right now. Okay, back. So this is the Columbia Street rendering. The proposal is for a use group 2 residential use and the development of a new 4-story residential dwelling totaling 6,650 615 at 0.77 square feet of building area, 1.185 FAR with 7 units and 6 parking spaces at the ground floor. As shown, the proposed building would rise to a total height of 40 feet. All the buildings rise to 40 feet, by the way. There would be rear yards of 30 and 0 and side yards of 0 and 30 because the yards are kind of strange. So it works out as 30 and 0 and 30 and 0. The premises is unimproved and is characterized as an infill lot on a subject block that is primarily residential. 375 Columbia Street was occupied by a 3-story retail store and 2 dwelling units in the late 1800s. By the early 1900s, the lot contained 2 dwellings. The site was in residential use until sometime between 1969 and 1977, by which time the dwellings had been demolished and the lot became vacant. The lot has remained undeveloped since that time and has at times been used for the storage and parking of cars and other times has remained vacant.
Can I
Okay.
ask you, I'm sorry to interrupt, but you're speaking
Yeah.
about the 375 Columbia site, but this slide you have up says 13 Lequer.
So they're all called that, but do you see it under it? It says Columbia Street rendering. That's just
Ah.
what the presentation is called.
Okay,
Sorry. And then you see how the scene says Lequer rendering.
understood.
Okay. And sorry if that's confusing. And the last is Cole Street. Okay. So 12 Cole Street. This is also for a use group 2 residential use and the development of a new 4-story, 4,920.9 square foot, 2.25 FAR residential building with 4 units and 4 parking spaces. As shown on the plans, which we'll go in a little bit, I thought that was confusing, so I'll leave this up. The proposed building would rise to a total of 40 feet. There would be a rear yard of 30 and 0 side yards. The premises is currently unimproved and characterized as an infill lot. Matt, can you turn on the light? I just got the light. Sorry. The premises was occupied by a 3-story plus basement dwelling from at least 1886 to 1950. This dwelling was demolished sometime between 1950 and 1969, and the lot has been undeveloped since that time and has been used for parking and automobile storage. So now, in order to explain all the things I just said in a way more beautiful way, I'm going to go back to the beginning of the presentation. And this is the breakdown of all the things I just said. So everybody can look at that for a minute. So 12, they all 40 feet, rise to 40 feet. 2 of them have 2.25 FAR, 375 would do 1.85 FAR. The first 2 have 4 residential units, the last is 7. You can see the floor area, and there would be a total of 10 parking spaces for all the units. So, and then if I go, sorry that I'm going back and forth, but if I go back to the renderings, a lot of the parking, you see this area right here, which my cursor is going around, a lot of the parking would be in that. But you can see it on the plans in a minute. So now I'm going to go back. Okay. So now I'm going to go through the 5 different findings of a variance now that you understand what we're trying to build. Okay. So there's 5 findings of a variance. The first is uniqueness. The block has historically had a history of residential use for almost a century. These sites were improved upon with residential buildings from about the 1930s, prior to the 1961 zoning resolution. In the 1940s, the city constructed the Hugh L. Carey Tunnel and its connecting highways through the neighborhood. When the boundaries of that M11 district were drawn, they included not just the manufacturing neighborhoods west of Columbia Street, but many residential blocks on either side of the highway. Certain larger properties in the area were eventually able to change to conforming uses. So if you would go more towards the water, you could see a lot of the things have become actually manufacturing, but this block has maintained its residential character, which we'll see in a minute. However, smaller properties struggled to become conforming commercial or industrial uses due to the difficulties faced by narrow streets, small lot sizes, especially for modern manufacturing or commercial uses, and the infill position of the sites. Another aspect of its uniqueness were the size. At least 2 of the sites, and the third one is strangely sized and the other 2 are really, really narrow. So that makes it really hard to build a proper manufacturing building there. And we can't restore, one of the things is, why should you give us a variance? We can't restore what was there before, because now that it's totally demolished and that wasn't the owner that did it at some other point in time, we can't put back that residential building that was there since the 1920s, 1930s. The next finding is reasonable return. You can see what we looked at. We look at commercial retail use and a community facility and see if we could reasonably get a return from those. And we prepare plans and we see if we could get a return from creating those uses, which are as of right, but we found losses, as you can see in that chart below. The next is neighborhood character. So there's a bunch of pieces of neighborhood character. First, it's a residential neighborhood, at least this block and the social block. The majority of the properties on the subject block are residential. 7 of the 8 that share the lot line with the sites are improved upon with residential buildings or mixed use buildings containing residential use. Of the 28 lots on the subject tax lot, 16, the majority are improved with buildings containing residential use. 10 of the 11 lots on the eastern block of block 512 immediately across Columbia Street from the subject block are developed with buildings containing residential use. There is not a single active manufacturing use on the block front immediately to the south of the sites across Laqueer Street, nor on the block front to the west of the sites across Columbia Street. For FAR, we looked at an FAR that would be consistent with what's around it, and in the aggregate, this equates to 2.13 FAR in the collective sites. FARs of this style of building range between 1.1 to 2.2, having more to do with the size of the underlying lot than the building itself. So we're close to that range. And then height, the proposed height of all the buildings are 40 feet, with which would be consistent with the neighborhood character. Buildings typically rise to heights of between 31 to 54 feet. A new building next to one of the sites at 15 Lacour Street will be 48 feet tall. I should also mention that 15 Lacour Street got a variance about a decade ago, which came to your board as well as the BSA, and it was approved at the BSA. It is currently under construction, and across the street at 18 and 24 Lacour, they also got about a decade ago a BSA resolution to build residential. That has not been constructed as of March of 2021 when I looked at it last. The next finding, the self-created hardship, the owner didn't create, this was not created or caused by the owner, and without this variance, he would be penalized for a situation due to circumstances beyond its control. That's pretty much why these lots have been vacant since the 1960s, 1970s, because no one's really able to do anything productive with these lots. And last is minimum variance. We think this is a minimum variance because we looked at the neighborhood and we tried to make the smallest buildings that we could actually get a return that would fit within that neighborhood. So now I'll go through more pictures. I'm sorry for so many words. So here's the site again. You can see what the 3 different sites are. 3 different sites. You can see around it, there are residential and mixed residential commercial buildings. There's a dog daycare next door to one of them. I thought that was kind of cute. Here are the sites on the tax map. Here's a land use map. So you can see that anything in gray is vacant. Anything in yellow is residential. And you can see around it, lots that were bigger actually were able to become manufacturing. So if you look a little out and you see much bigger lots, they're actually manufacturing. There you go. So then this is part of the uniqueness study. We did a floor area study that you can take a look at, and a building height study. We're in the 0 to 39 feet, so that's all the white. And then this is properties with a lot area less than or equal to 7,250 square feet, so we fit within that. This is properties 25 feet or less in width, because we often go for variances. We have trouble when there's 25 feet in width on a lot and for manufacturing. This is properties with an existing residential use combined with properties 25 feet or less in width, and you can see how that comes together. And this is a lot more information, which I don't know if you want me to do, but then we mixed all the different things together and we found that these properties have more hurdles than a lot of the other ones around them. That sums it up. This is showing you that the history of the lot, to show you it was built in the 1920s, 1930s. And then here are photographs of what's around us. So you can see that there's, and then these are the plans. Maybe I should go to questions so we can look deeper in the plans together, because it's a lot of information. But here you can see the parking.
We can move to questions for sure.
I just feel like I've loaded a lot lot of information, so.
I'm sure we'll have a lot of questions and get into some of the details. So
Yeah, so
if you-
let's do that.
yeah, so, okay, so if you're a member of the committee and you want to ask a question, please use the raise hand function. I'll just call in the order I see them. If you're a member of the public, there'll be an opportunity for questions from members of the public after the committee has exhausted itself. I see Jerry, then Joanna, then Glenn, then Bob.
Okay, I'm ready.
Okay, I just unmuted myself. First of all, I think I have at the moment only 2 questions, and I'll listen for some more of the facts. You say that there are 10 parking places altogether,
Mhm.
of which 6 are in the Columbia Street building and 4 in the Cole Street building.
Mhm.
But in your rendering of the Columbia Street building, there is no garage door. So does that mean they're all coming through Cole Street and these buildings are interconnected?
Let's look at the plans. And Ming, if you know off the
That-
top of your head, if you could help.
Go back, you just passed. the
Go
Columbia
back to the
Street.
rendering. Go back to the rendering.
This
Okay.
is, this
I
is
believe
Cole
the
Street.
access to the Columbia parking is on Luquier Street.
Yeah,
Excuse me,
probably.
Glenn, I'd like to have the applicant answer.
Well, I appreciate the help, and let us look at the entrances. Okay. Ming, are you there by any chance?
I'm here. Go back to the rendering.
Back
He's
to the
refer-
rendering?
Yeah, he's referring to the rendering. If you look at the curved side of the rendering, this is close.
Yeah,
See, this is the garage.
there. Thank you.
So the buildings, the garage will be interconnected. There'll be parking under Columbia Street? Because you're claiming that 6 of the spots are in the building on Columbia Street.
Because Columbia Street is an L-shaped building,
I'll go back to
it's an
the,
L-shaped lot.
I'll show you.
Okay,
It
that's what
has entrance.
Here.
It has entrance from Luker and Columbia.
Okay,
So therefore,
Thank you.
the
Ming.
entrance to the garage is on Luker Street.
okay.
375
That's
Columbia Street.
That's what I wanted to confirm, quite
Yes.
frankly. Okay. The other thing is, you talked about an overall height of 40 feet. Does
Yeah.
this include the bulkheads going up the stairways and all the bulkheads?
No, bulkhead is additional 9 feet.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Min.
One more question at the moment. If we can go to the table with the total number of. That's perfect. That is perfect. Okay, so in total, we have 15 residential units.
Mhm.
And I have to say that I think that this, at the moment, looking at it, is a fairly good use of the space. The space is very narrow in places, and I don't see how it can be used as a manufacturing. Either of the 3 lots can be used for manufacturing. But I would like to know why you feel you need 10 spaces.
I think we were trying to give as much parking as possible.
Right now, everything is going in the direction of reduced parking. And I'm just curious as to why you feel 10 is as much, or why you need 10. Is there a problem with on-street parking in the area?
Yeah, if you look at it, there's no mass transit around this area. The next nearest train station is 20 minutes away. I think it's a walking distance, 20 minutes away, something like that. And the street is pretty parked. And it's gonna be very hard to find parking if the tenant has a park, that has a car, needs to park. So if a tenant has a car, they have the option of leasing a spot in that
Okay.
garage.
And
All right.
at the other sites, 15 and 1824 LaCour that were approved by the board, they gave about 50% of the units parking. So that's not every unit, but they gave a significant.
10 years ago.
Okay. Okay, that's it for me right now.
Thank you. Can we have Joanna?
Hi, good evening. I too was curious about the abundance of parking, given what we know about the impacts that it has on our climate when we encourage people to drive. I was wondering if you guys ran the numbers for scenarios with fewer spots or none at all, to see if that might make things more economically viable.
I mean, it's not just for parking cars, it's also parking for bicycles, in the garage, things like that. I mean, I'm sure that once the new energy code is added, that they require electrical cars in there, electrical chargers. So things are moving on to electrical cars, and we're sure the building department gonna require to have electrical charging stations, things like that.
I was concerned too by the placement of one of the garage doors on the Coles Street facade we saw. It looks like the door is facing a mature street tree. And I'm concerned about people having to drive on the sidewalk to access that.
That tree is gonna be relocated. We're gonna go to the park department, see if we can get relocation of the trees.
That one, I mean, that's a huge mature tree with a value of several $1,000s. So, relocating it should be a last resource. Is there a reason why it's not at where the curb, is there a curb cut there now? Or like behind that gray car? It's hard to see in the rendering, but.
I wonder if I have like a existing plan.
The
here.
plans show 2 new curb cuts.
There is a curb cut on the dog clinic, the animal clinic next door. So we want to move at least 18 feet away from their curb cut.
Oh, I think it's probably a requirement is the problem. Right?
Anyway,
Yeah,
it looks problematic in there. I don't think that the Parks Department's going to want to get rid of a mature tree to facilitate private parking. I don't think that's a trade-off that happens very often. And then I was also concerned on one of the other renderings of the character garage.
I have to submit them all the time.
Could someone mute
I have to submit them
if
so
you're
that
not
they-
speaking?
So that they show up.
That one. Worried about that big blank brick wall and what you're characterizing as a residential stretch. Doesn't look very in keeping with the character of the rest of the
So
block.
we need to do a chapter 13.
I'm sorry, can someone please mute their line? If they're not talking, please mute your line. Okay. we
Yeah,
can have an
just
answer to the question now.
Thoughts and discussion about whether that large blank brick wall is in keeping with the residential character.
So I could show you next door, for instance, the pet shop also has a big brick wall. If you want to see it, it's kind of the big brick wall location.
It's just something we've been trying to move away from. Just, we're trying to activate our streetscape more. And that's just like, we're just trying to avoid that where we can. So I don't know if there's something else that can be done with that wall to make it more inviting or.
Yeah, but that's definitely something we would be happy to look at, but I was just going to show you if I can find it. Not Columbia. It's Cole Street, right?
Yeah, close, not close. But
that
at this
one-
point, we are just a more of intensive land use. At some point, once we go to the filing, we will design something more familiar with the
so
streetscape
we
of the surroundings.
And we could look to adding maybe an ivy or something like that. I mean, and talk about that with the owner who's on the call now, but I've seen your board do that with other brick, because you guys have a lot of brick in your neighborhood.
Yeah, and then this also might be a cart ahead of the wagon issue, but the building material itself doesn't seem very contextual. So just wanted to put that on everyone's radar.
So this is the brick next door. Do you see it?
Yeah.
So I think we were just showing, and these renderings are not like, unfortunately, we didn't have the time to, or we didn't make them as fancy as they potentially could be, but it is a brick wall, which we're trying to show. And this building next door is also a brick. And then the one on the other side isn't brick, but it has a brick coloring.
Yeah, just wondering about the color of the brick in the renderings.
But I'm sure that the owner is open-minded about the color of his brick. It's just that what we're showing is a brick.
Great, thank you so much.
I had Glenn next, but I just want to follow up with the question I think Joanna asked that was not answered. Joanna asked whether you had run the numbers on alternatives where there was no parking. And we got an answer about how electric cars are a thing and how bikes could also park in the car spots. So I'd like an answer to her question.
Okay, no problem. So one is, I think that when we design, we look a lot about what other variances in the neighborhood got, and they all had at least 50% parking. So that's something we looked at. But Ming, did you try, can you speak to any other designs you may have looked at? Or did you go with the parking because all of the other
Now,
variances
if there's no parking there, there's gonna be open space. There's gonna be, light and air for the units.
So I guess we really went with that because we looked at what was around in the area and how the transportation, and we felt that it needed that amount of parking to make sense.
So you didn't model without parking?
No, because we felt like looking at other variances that we needed to, that the board and even you guys may ask us or require more parking. So it's something we can discuss, but we feel that the parking is necessary in that location, or some parking.
Understood. Okay, Glenn.
Following up on Joanne's comment about neighborhood character, I would second her concern about materials and design. While we don't really have any control over that, I would encourage the owner to try to fit in a little bit better. You may have used that color brick just to make the rendering stand out against the neighboring buildings, but it would be nice to see it red. It would be nice to see sort of contextual windows rather than it just seems like an unimaginative design. And then I've got a question about hardship and when the present owner acquired these properties.
Mr. Facilli, because you're the owner, do you want to say when you acquired them? Unmute yourself. Do you know? Unmute yourself. You're still muted. I was trying to. There you
Okay,
go.
can you hear me?
Hi.
Yes.
Hi, all right, properties were purchased, I would say about 6-7 years ago.
There you go. And they have been used as a parking automotive
Yes, yeah, they were
uses
always used as parking, yes.
for generations.
Okay, so it doesn't come as a surprise that your options were limited if you just purchased these a couple of years ago, I guess. But thank you, you've answered my question. There was no mention made of flood risk. I'm guessing you're not in a flood zone, but I'd like to know if you are, because that could be factored into parking.
Understood. I'm double
If
checking.
I believe there's a flood map.
So
on
the
your
flood,
side,
yeah, there is a
which
flood
is-
map. I can
we're-
also
we're
share
a
my,
little bit out of it, but we're very close to it.
yeah, so I can share my screen again to show you. Hold on, I was just pulling it up. Share screen. Okay, where is it? Here we go. Share. So do you see where the flood zone ends?
Yes,
Yeah, so we're not in it. We just miss it.
okay. All right, so that might be something that helps us decide on the parking, but now that we are talking about parking again, I recall that new curb cuts required a building frontage of 40 feet or more. This going back to, I don't know, the rezoning of Fourth Avenue, I'm not sure.
That's
But
only in
that's changed in the
certain
meantime.
zones like R5B,
But it's
something like
the
that.
one that I remember, and in this case, I'd be reluctant to grant a curb cut, except for the fact that you're putting quite a bit of parking in there, and it might be worth making a curb cut, losing one spot, if you're then providing 5 times the parking. So having said that, I want to just offer another comment to my fellow committee members with regard to the sort of minimum requirement. And if this area was going to be rezoned, it would probably, if it was residential, we'd probably be looking at R6B, as is on the other side of the tunnel in the Columbia Waterfront District, or R5, which is nearby. And that would provide an FAR of maximum of 2. So this is asking for more than would likely be granted to anybody else who wanted to add on to their buildings in the residential buildings nearby. So I just tossed that out there for discussion. It may not be the minimum requirement for relief.
And here in the aggregate.
You don't need to answer that. I just want to put it out to my fellow committee members.
Okay, I was just gonna say in the aggregate, it's 2.13 if you
Yeah, I
combine.
understand. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Glenn. Bob?
Yeah, it's a little hard to tell, and it's again with the character of the neighborhood, looking at the drawings, whether or not your buildings come out too far from the buildings next to them. Can you just go through them, because it doesn't look like they butt, or it does look like maybe they butt, and the way they're drawn, or do they come out in front of it? Can you just give us a quick overview of?
So this, it's a mix. Let's see. I mean, do you know if the plans is a better, so these
Go
don't,
to the plans. Go to the
Yeah.
plan. You have a plan?
Yeah,
yeah,
the plans look like they're even, but the pictures don't look like they're even.
yeah, so sometimes renderings, I guess, things get a little hard to see, but it is even on the plans, and we're building per the plans. The renderings were just shown to give you an idea of,
Okay, as long as I didn't know which one to use in my
Yeah.
mind, so,
but plans are, yeah, I just wanted everybody to be able to actually picture what we were saying.
yeah. And yeah, I saw that and that didn't. Okay, And again, I agree with what was said before. Brick is fine, but the red brick fits with the character of the neighborhood much more than the
Understood.
white brick. It's a
Thank
much more modern look.
Okay.
Okay, I have David, then Maddie, Jerry, Paul, Daniel. So let's go, David.
Hello, good evening, and apologize that again that I showed up late. The parking, everything has already been said, so I guess I'll just sort of quickly restate it. Is that the premise of this presentation is that you're stitching together a residential neighborhood.
Mhm.
Go back to that rendering you just had there, slide
Oh, you want the
23.
rendering? I was trying to go to the comparison thing again, but I'll go to the rendering.
No, this one, and this is what I mean. As Glenn said, we can't really influence the color of brick or the shapes of things or the window sizes, but we can influence what's on the site. And I just don't see in this rendering. And now go to the next one.
Okay.
I'm sorry, the other one on, I guess it's Cole Street. Yeah, this is not stitching together the site. You're putting a big corrugated metal door, and I agree with Joanna. I don't relocating that tree, I think, is a non-starter. You don't need the parking, it's not required, it doesn't have to be there, and unless it's a revenue generating thing, I don't see the point. And even if it is revenue generating, how about working a little bit harder to stitch the residential portion of the neighborhood together as you're stating, rather than putting in these parking garages? I don't think they're appropriate. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, and I think we can look into doing less parking. I wonder what the BSA will say, but I totally see your point. But if you recommend
It's
it,
not required.
yeah, understood.
It's not required by zoning.
Mhm.
What do you mean what the BSA would say?
I just I'm just thinking about it because I was looking at other variances in the neighborhood.
Oh,
But
okay.
I think that your recommendation goes a long way. So if we get rid of some of the parking, or we get rid of the parking, they'll,
All of it.
yeah.
David, is that it? Okay, Maddie.
Hi, could you go back to the Cold Street one where it's still a vacant lot?
Do you want like a picture like this or the aerial?
No, not the aerial. When you were showing the brick for the dog daycare.
Oh,
next
that
door
was a
to you.
different screen. Stop sharing.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Find it again, the dog. Okay. Okay. Sorry.
And I should tell you, I live in Red Hook, so I know what the transportation is and everything else, but I have some comments to make.
Yeah, here we go.
Okay. The parking, the curb cut here is in front of your vacant lot. So why you need to cut down a tree in order to make a curb cut makes no sense at all.
Mhm.
What do you call it? Having parking might be good for people who have bikes, and you're talking about electric cars. No sense in having electric cars unless somebody's going to be putting in the electric to be able to charge up that cars. Is the owner willing to do that? Because there aren't that many on-street places where you can charge up an electric car.
Mhm.
By the energy code, if you provide parking, you have to provide charging stations for electric cars.
Okay, well, that's if you have an electric car. And I understand why you're talking about it, because transportation down here, it's a long way to get to the subways and whatever. And walking is not that easy to get to anywhere.
And Ming, is it required? Do we have to move the tree? Like, because it's
We can
required?
look
You've
at
got a
it
curb
and-
cut right there. So why do you need to move the tree?
So I don't-
You just have to move the entrance to the other side of the building.
Because that dog animal clinic has a curb cut right next to it. It's too close. I don't think that curb cut is legal. There's no record of this curb cut.
Oh,
Well, that's nothing new.
And if I could just chime in here and say, there's no way that tree is being moved. Let's stop talking about moving it. It's going to be cut down.
That's
It'll be
true.
replaced someplace by quite a few trees. So
That's what I'd like to address when I get a chance.
Yeah, you can't move that tree. Not legally.
I guess
That's all I have to say.
since Daniel wants to talk about the tree, maybe, I don't know.
I'll handle it.
Okay.
Jerry?
No, I wasn't trying to step on you. I was just saying maybe I should.
Oh, no,
wait till
no,
all
no,
the
I
trees-
appreciate it. I appreciate it. Just we try to do it in the order and, you
Yeah.
know.
Okay, Manny took care of one of my questions, which was the charging station. I just want to remind everybody that unlike a variance application, under the 5 points, item number C or 3, depending, we can specify the color of the brick. We can specify the way the windows look in a variance, because the way it looks now, it is altering the essential character of the neighborhood. The character is not stark white and tiny metal framed windows. So in the long run, we have a little more to play with, because supposedly what we see and what they present to BSA will be voting on unless they alter the plans. When we have a zoning application, we are definitely buying a pig in the poke when it comes to the appearance of the building. So if we are, and I think I, for one, do not like the white brick and the tiny little windows and so on, but I think that we can be a bit more specific if that's something that we all agree to. One other thing, and well, Glenn, you covered it, you're never going to cut down that tree. I mean, sorry, you're not going to move it. You will definitely cut it down and it'll be replaced by 5 trees and not necessarily on that block, as long as it's trees in that vicinity. Am I correct, Glenn?
I'm not sure what parks would require with regard to vicinity, but yeah, hopefully.
Yeah. So I think since we're discussing a variance, when we're discussing the appearance of the building, the large brick wall, the white bricks, the small punched out windows, that's something we can specify if we're so inclined. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. Paul, and then Daniel.
Thank you, Alec. I just wanted to add one thing. I don't know if it was brought up, and I heard in the beginning that they're bringing us these 3 applications and we should be voting on them individually, which leads me to my comment question. This board has been very sensitive to finding balance in the neighborhood, and we know that there is a hardship with maybe one of these lots, definitely with the size or the shape. But I think, again, bringing up the site with the tree, for instance, has the owner considered or done an evaluation on whether part of this site, one of these lots, could remain studio space, commercial space, and do a workout to see if, one of these lots, which one might make sense remaining that, so we could find an even balance and maybe add value for the residential needs and some of the live work commercial needs that we know we need also. So I just wanted to see if that was something when we vote on this and individually, and maybe one of these lots might make sense, and if they looked at it that way. Thank you.
Well, we did do financials on it, which I don't know if you saw. I will bring them up again. And we looked at community facility and commercial space. Share. Okay. Okay, here we go. So you see this chart? So this chart sums up the findings of project profit loss for each of the sites.
I see it, and I guess you did this on an individual basis, but since it's one owner, I think it sort of changes the equation, because if he does get some residential, then he could probably afford to do some commercial. I mean, it's going to offset one. If you're looking at it all commercial, maybe you're right. But if he's getting some residential on some of the more awkward lots, then he could present the community with an opportunity to maybe give us a little bit of both, if that's, how he wants to see the project develop. But again, I'm just, trying to find a balance that makes sense for the many users we have in the neighborhood and some of the hardships. Maybe the tree could, love to have a bunch of artists looking at it from their windows of their studios. So, I mean, it's just a thought. Thank you.
And I think that's something we can discuss after this meeting. Because we've heard a lot
Um, we scrolled very quickly through the plans insofar as they showed where the parking spaces
Okay, I'll go
were.
back.
Can we go back to that? Because what my question is, if you eliminated that garage door on Cole Street, how many spaces would that eliminate? That's what I'm not clear about.
It will eliminate 4 spaces.
Yeah, so why not just get rid of that? Because I can tell you, I will absolutely not vote for this thing if it includes any plan to remove that tree. That tree, that's an absolute non-starter, character of the neighborhood issue. And so I don't even know why we would even, consider that. It seems to me, if all you need to do is give up 4 spaces, and you still have 7, which is almost half of your units. Why that isn't a reasonable alteration. But I can tell you that if the plan includes removal of that tree, I am absolutely not voting for this, at least that part of the application.
Understood. And I think that we can, because obviously we're talking about a lot of new things, so we can, after this conversation, meet with the owner and with the architect and take your comments and come back to you with potentially a new proposal or slightly different proposal.
Okay, does anyone else on the committee have a question they wanted to ask? Jerry?
I just heard something that has me a bit confused. The applicant's representative just said that they would take back our comments and motion and discuss it with the owner and maybe come back. Does this mean, do you have a date at BSA?
No,
You don't have a date,
do not have
and
it.
you're willing to make changes and come back to us at a later date?
I think that if that means, because the tree thing, we hadn't, brought up like you have. And so I think that we can see that it's a real concern of yours. So I think we've gotten really good feedback and we want to obviously provide something the community would support. So I think the answer is yes.
That changes where I was going.
I mean, I've
No.
heard a lot about this tree and I don't want to,
Well, you heard a
just
lot
get a
about tree
denial.
and you heard a lot about parking.
Yeah.
And before I go any further, you just answered Daniel's question by saying that if we eliminated the curb cut, which would force the removal of that tree, you would lose 4 parking
spaces.
places.
Yep.
And I'm trying to understand then how is access to the other 6 spaces? Through what part of the building? Because you said they are in 375 Columbia Street. Now you said it comes around as an L.
Yep. I'm
And
trying to go to it. So they're in here, this area. So let's show you where the opening is. Is this the right plan, Ming, or should I keep going?
Do you have the zoom in plan for the 375?
Of all the plans, are just here, this.
Yes, this one.
So you'd come in.
You were
On the
coming from Lucas Street.
and
And there's a
I'm
new
just-
tree.
And do you have a rendering, a elevation of that side of the building with the garage door in it?
Yes. It's this, correct? There you go. This.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Just wanted to make sure I had the right one in mind.
Yeah, and then
Um,
no tree would be lost there. We would be planting a new one.
In light of what's been said and what the representative just said, and all our comments, I'm not ready to vote on this at the moment. Maybe I'm wrong, and maybe the rest of the committee thinks different. But if they're willing to come back to us at a later date, they don't have a date at BSA. I would like to see what they come up with based on our comments. And maybe a possible motion to table would be in order. I don't know.
I hear you. Let's tick through the rest of the comments and then we'll discuss it as a committee. I see David and then Glenn.
Hi, hi. My question is pretty short. Are you proposing 10 parking spaces or 11?
10.
Okay, because I see 11 on your plans.
Okay.
At least if I counted right.
Okay.
You are correct, David. I counted 11 as well.
So maybe it's 11 and I'm wrong and you're right.
Well, I think in that chart you put up, you showed 10 though. There's
Yeah,
7
then I
there,
guess it was. Okay.
and there's
then
4 in the other building.
Yep, it's 11. Sorry, it was wrong. Apologies. I will, if we come back, I will have it corrected.
Okay.
That's it.
And Glenn?
I agree with Jerry. I would like to see them come back and accommodate some of our requests. I like Paul's idea to try to keep some of the mixed use character of Red Hook. Maybe incorporate some, say, art space or small manufacturing into one of the buildings. Maybe jettison the parking on Cole Street so that you can preserve the tree. And just make the building look better, like it belongs there. That's all.
Maybe a darker brick would
Change-
solve that problem.
Change the
Absolutely.
color.
Yeah, that's why I said maybe a darker brick would solve that problem.
And the
Bob?
window.
I just, one, you keep saying that you don't want the driveway too close to the daycare, the doggy daycare. Is that a legal thing or you just feel that way? 'Cause-
In the zoning resident, in the residential zone, usually they want 18 feet separation between each cuts, minimum.
Okay.
One question I have, which is, I'm sorry to keep dwelling on the parking. It was said before, if you didn't have parking, then it would just be empty space, if I heard that right. And I'm just trying to understand why that is. I mean, I would think your application, if it wanted to, could use that could have a different use, or is there something I'm not understanding?
I don't think we said that. I think we were saying it was a vacant parking lot now.
Okay, so I guess then my question is, if you were to reduce the parking, presumably you could have more housing units here. That could be where a community facility would be. That could be where a mixed commercial space could be. Is that right?
And that's something we would love to have a conversation a bit about with the owner after this presentation. So maybe, yeah, we'll talk about it. We have to look at our
Okay.
financials too. So that's something we have to consider.
Okay, Maddie?
Yeah, I'm against the parking space, but the other problem is I live in Red Hook. I was here during Superstorm Sandy. If you look at that flood map, he is not that far away from where the flooding is. And they don't want anything, FEMA or anybody else, on a first floor level anymore. So if it can't be parking for cars, it could still be parking for bikes or scooters or something else. But they really don't want a lot of stuff parked, unfortunately, any kind of people living there and whatever, if possible. That's it.
Glenn, I see you have your hand raised again.
Yeah, I just noticed that we have several attendees. don't recognize the names, but they could be residents. Maybe they want to weigh in here.
I was planning to do that after the committee had exhausted its questions.
Never
But,
mind, Alex.
I'm exhausted, so why don't we go to members of the public? If you're a member of the public, your attendee, please raise your hand. I see Jonathan has raised his hand. Ty, if you could promote Jonathan and then David Glazer so that they can ask what questions they'd like. And Jonathan, you should be able to unmute yourself now and talk.
Hi, I'm Liz. I'm Jonathan's partner. We live in the house next door. So we are 5 Lucre Street. We'll be surrounded on 2 sides by this development. I think a few things that we want to ask about and also want to speak to. We bought the house 1.5 years ago, and we were really concerned about the commute at the time because we were living in Borum Hill. And had to commute into the city. It's not a 20-minute walk, it's a 12-minute walk. We timed it from our front door to the subway. So that's one thing I think is important to call out. The 2 questions that we have are regarding whether there will be a rooftop access or anything designed on the rooftop that would be looking down onto our building. I asked that because we have a rooftop access. We have chairs and seats up there, and it's something we use frequently. So we are concerned about our privacy, not just on the building that would be 4 stories tall behind us, looking down on us, but also on the what is now garage in the mock-up that would be able to look onto the balcony that abuts our master bedroom. The other question I have is, this garage door, I'm a little concerned about noise. I think my question is whether it's something that would be operational 24 hours a day. I think, we all know what the sound of a metal garage door going up and down can be like. And again, our master bedroom is right there, right next door to where this garage would be on Laqueer Street. So something to consider in terms of like noise and livability, not just for us, but people who are across the street. It's a block of families that have all been here for a really long time. So noise is a concern.
And not to pile on, but I would also just like to add, there were 2 trees that were removed by the parks on this block in the last year since we've been here due to a snowstorm, as well as one was kind of rotting. And those have not been replaced. And we filed tickets with the park for over like 6 months to a year, and they said a long wait time for those trees. And so one of the things that we would love to hope for the block is a return of greenery. I know that they're doing construction across the street. They got some variance as well, but I don't know if there's going to be trees replaced, and I don't know if that variance actually asked or is planning to put trees on the other side of the street. So in some ways, like, new trees are great, but they take many years to grow. And so we'd love to see just kind of the committee consider how greenery happens on the street.
Understood. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, I think that Mr. Fasili, we don't have any plans right now for rooftop. I don't know if you do. We haven't gotten that far in the plans.
On the rooftop, there's no use. It's just an access. There's no use on the rooftop.
Just access, so there won't be a rooftop access just for electricians or whomever needs to fix things. And then we can have a discussion too about the garage door and limiting hours. I totally get you about the noise. Maybe there's some sort of door or something that can make less noise. And that's definitely an important conversation that our team has to discuss, because I wouldn't want to live next to a loud door either.
I have a question. Did you guys hear any garage noise from 15 Lucre Street?
Further down?
Yeah, this one building down, 15 Lucre.
No, because the lot next to us is quite large. That's where you all have plans to fit a significant amount of cars. So it's a distance away. So that's pretty far. But I'd be happy to connect to, I don't want this to be a negative feedback session for all of you. I think it was just more like we wanted to be participatory and engaged, and we could also happy to follow up with you with any other questions, etc.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, thank you.
Really appreciate it.
I think,
Let's- Mark,
are you-
let's go to
Franco, are you-
David.
Sorry.
I'm sorry, what were you gonna
Was
say?
Franco trying to speak? He was on mute or no? You're good. You're on mute.
No, I'm good, I'm
Can't
good.
hear you.
No, Franco, I was saying, is on mute. No. Okay, I don't know. Hi, were you trying to speak?
Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yes.
now, yeah.
Yeah, in reference to the garage doors, the residential garage doors are extremely quiet. What you're looking at there on the rendering, it's actually showing a commercial type overhead door, which I doubt that that's what will be installed. It's not a residential type garage door.
So the render, clearly we have to update the rendering a little and change the brick color. We've had these conversations. So if we come back to you, we'll put a new type of rendered door so you could see something that you would be more than happy to approve, hopefully.
Okay, Jerry, Mark, I see your hands, but let's first go to David, who I said we'd hear from next, and then we'll go to you. David Glazer, you can unmute yourself, I think.
Yes, I don't live in this area, but I come to it frequently. And I would just tell you, with regard to the flooding issue, there's a police facility, I believe, at the corner of Columbia Street and Hamilton Avenue. And I asked one of the police officers there what happened during Superstorm Sandy. And he said they have a lot of windows, in that building at the sidewalk level. And he told me that the water came gushing, through those windows into the basement of that facility there. And that's, like really, really close to where this location is. And I just offer that, as an observation.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let's hear from Mark and then Jerry.
Yeah, you might as well go to Jerry because I was just going to move the table.
Okay, well, I suspect Jerry might be doing that too. Jerry?
Yes, that's what I'm going to do. I just want to clarify the statement from the gentleman who just spoke. The facility he's referring to is a TBTA as part of it's the administrative offices and everything else for what used to be the Brooklyn Battery Tunnel and is now the UCarry Tunnel, but that's beside the point. In light of the applicant's willingness to listen to our comments and make changes, and the fact that they are not scheduled on the calendar for BSA, I'd like to make a motion to table this and have them come back either in our November or December meeting at their convenience, whichever they find best to work with. And then we can take a vote on it. But I don't think it's ready for us to vote on it right now.
And
okay, so that's it's not a debatable motion, but I think we can
Need a
certainly
second.
take a vote.
I'll
if-
second it.
Okay, so let's all use our raise hand functions. And Pauline, if you and Paul, I don't know if you're here by phone, but if you are, you can just say whether you are in favor of this motion or not. And that's it. Raise your hand if you're in favor. Raise your hand if you're in favor.
Can the applicant stop sharing their?
Oh, sorry.
apologies.
Oh, sorry. Apologies.
All right, I'm in favor of the motion, but can I ask Jerry to request that we should have individual information as to what is considered extraordinary cost factors that would prevent them from developing commercial space, because combining all three properties is not worthwhile for this committee to vote on each as a separate item.
Thank you, Pauline. I think that the applicant has surely heard that, and so hopefully they'll be prepared to address that issue when they're back before us, because it looks like a majority of us have voted in favor of this motion to table. But before we move on, if you are abstaining, or please, everybody can lower their hands. And if you're abstaining, please raise your hand.
Mark, lower your.
And if you're voting no, you can raise your hand. Paul, is that an abstain from you, Paul?
I'm sorry, I'm losing track of raising or lowering hands. I had raised to favor table the motion. Well, what are we doing now?
Okay, great. So I got you. I got you. And is anyone against? Okay, well, just want to say, I know that this isn't probably the outcome that you had in mind coming here today, but we really appreciate you hearing the feedback from the committee and coming back. It really is, it's not every day that happens. And so we appreciate it. We look forward to seeing you all again. Hope it isn't too much trouble.
Thank you so much.
And we'll give it the fair consideration it deserves when you're back here. Thank you.
And I think that, there was some major specific comments that people told us how they would like to fix it. So we'd be more than happy to have a discussion if that's feasible. So thank you.
Wonderful. Okay. Well, you all have a good night. And I think that's our land use agenda for the night. So David, I think we have a landmarks item.
Yes, we do. Is the applicant here?
Yes,
Who said yes?
Evram.
Oh, hi.
Hi.
And it's just you making the presentation?
Yes, that's me and Gogo from my office, from our office as well. She's here.
Okay. If anybody is here from the community wants to comment on this project, please let Ty know, or you can direct chat us or however, and we'll call you when the time comes. But this is a project at 26 Tompkins Place, a certificate of appropriateness application for a new rooftop addition. So Evram, have you presented to us before?
No.
Okay, so go ahead and make your presentation. I'll call on the people asking the questions. You can answer them if they ask you a question. Once there's a motion on the floor, on the virtual floor, you have to stay out of the conversation unless someone asks you a question for clarification. Okay.
Understood. Thank you.
Okay, so
I share
you're
my
welcome.
screen.
Yeah, or Ty, are you going to do it, or Evram? How are we going to do this?
She's going to do it
Sometimes Ty
herself.
does. Okay, take it away, Evram.
Okay, thank you. Oops. Okay. This is 1 second. Sorry about that.
All right. Take your time. You want Ty to do it?
I'm trying to give access to Acrobat. For some reason it's restricted. Let me see. Computer privacy. Okay, let me see. Don't know why it's not letting me.
Evram, if you want to email me your most up-to-date presentation, I'll go ahead and share the screen.
Okay, I will send you this. I don't know if you can. You're not assigned as co-host. I think that's why you might not be able to share. So let's see. Okay, just emailed you.
Just 1 minute, folks. As soon as I get the email and download it, I'll put it on the screen.
Okay, there we go.
All right, so
Thank you.
Ivram, just go ahead with your presentation, and whenever you want me to go to the next slide, just say next slide.
Okay, we can go to the next slide as the first page. Today we're presenting a project, a small rooftop addition. This is the existing building. Next slide, please. So this building has been recently altered. So this has to go to a landmarks public hearing because of this reason. Next slide, please. So we're basically adding this small rooftop addition with a setback from the front and the rear to add some extra room to the house. It's a single family home, and we're not proposing any disturbance at the facade. And next slide, please. And here, this is the left side is the existing front elevation with the existing mechanical units and the skylight, and the right side is the proposed front elevation. Next slide, please. And this is the rear elevation. Left side is the existing and the right side is the proposed. And there are some studies regarding the facade materials. We are proposing brick for the front and metal in the rear. We actually also, when we discussed this with the overview meeting with the landmarks, as long as it's not visible from the front facade could be brick. Otherwise, their suggestion is make as much distinction as possible between the existing and the addition. So in the rear, that's why that contrast is more emphasized using the metal coatings. Next slide, please. And next slide, please. So this is our floor plan for the addition. Fourth floor plan on the left, and then the roof of the bulkhead addition is on the right. The existing mechanical unit and existing skylight basically is carrying over to the new roof level. And there is a new fireplace, and stairwell is extended to the addition. In the front, we have double French doors opening to a patio. And in the rear, those swings that you're seeing, they are not actually doors. They are 2 windows opening. And we don't have a railing at the rear. We discussed this with the landmark preservationists, and they said that we do not need a railing in the back. And we still have a 3 feet setback that's also required. Next slide, please. And this is like a visibility study. This is the sight line from across the street. We are not visible from the front, and actually the main building addition is not visible from anywhere. In the upcoming slides, you're gonna see it. I'm gonna explain it a little further. But because of the requirements with the DOB, we need to extend the existing chimneys 3 feet above our new addition. So part of the extended chimneys, which are 3 of them are extended existing chimneys, and there will be 1 new chimney for the new fireplace. So those are partially visible from certain distances. Next slide, please. So these are our, this is our building from different views on the map. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Oh, actually, sorry, if you could stay in this one for a little bit. So the circle, black dash circle on the left, that's diagonal from us, another rooftop addition that is that has been built already. So they have a similar condition with us. So that's why we put this in this image to compare. And they also have a large mechanical unit on top of their bulkhead, just like ours. Next slide, please. And here we walked around the block and took photos from many different points. And as you can see on the left, the map has numbers and the views are numbered according to those points where we took the photos. And so basically the extended chimneys have visibility. Next slide, please. And there are 2 points that we have visibility. One of them is where you see on the map number 2, from the corner across the street, especially on Kane Street, Kane and Tompkins corner. There is a visibility point where you can see a little bit of the chimneys, and also a number 7, there is a garden there. So it's because of that empty lot, there's a little bit of a visibility of, I believe from that point, there's a mechanical unit's visibility. Next slide, please. So these are some photos from our mock-up. First, we built the 4 walls of the actual main building addition, and then it was required that we have a full mock-up by the landmarks as well. So we added on the left, the large cube that you see that's projected vertically up. That's where the mechanical unit is. And in the middle, you can see, actually there are 4 chimneys on the closer side. There are 2 existing extended chimneys, which are the neighbors' chimneys. And on the other side beyond, you see 2 small chimneys at the further point. So the one on the right is an existing extended chimney, and the left one is for the new fireplace. Next slide, please. This is the front it's set back, and the little piece that you see on the left corner is the railing, which is not going to be visible at all. Next slide, please. This is now we're looking from the other side, from Kane Street side. So these are the left chimney is existing to be extended, and the right one is the new one we're proposing. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. So this is the back, this is the rear. And that railing that you see on the left, actually after after the landmarks preservationist visit on the job site, that's when he suggested that we do not need a railing there, since this is just a 3 feet required setback, and this is not a deck. No one's going to walk on it. So basically there are windows looking over to the back. So that railing will be removed for the updated mock-up. Next slide, please.
That's the last one.
Oh, okay. So there is we can go back maybe a few pages to the map, one of the maps. Maybe one, yeah, this is good. So basically, like we made sure that we have like the minimum square footage that we can provide, and we made sure that visibility won't be an issue. Obviously, the chimneys technically have to be extended, and we also discussed this with the landmarks preservationist and the deputy commissioner on a Zoom call as well. So they made some suggestions to reduce the visibility of the chimneys and mechanical units. So we still have to schedule meetings next, also after this meeting, maybe Monday possibly, to discuss all these suggestions with the client and the mechanical engineer as well. So we're gonna possibly need to change the location of the mechanical unit, and there are some other options for the chimneys that were suggested that they can be consolidated, and maybe rather than having 4 separate chimneys, they might be consolidated into 1 chimney on each side, which is also there is a perspective of chimneys of all neighboring buildings. For example, if we look like from the De Gros Street side through that empty lot, there is a row of existing chimneys that's creating a perspective. So they're kind of like visually blocking each other. So the commissioner suggested that the preservationist and the commissioner, they suggested that we can use that existing chimneys perspective to minimize the visibility, as if we move the chimneys and the mechanical units towards the center of the roof, and if we can find a solution to hide them behind the existing chimneys. Let me see if others. Yeah.
Let me just jump in here.
Sure.
I think that's a pretty good presentation. I want to ask a point of clarification, then we can open it up. Did you take any photos of that mock-up? Which I think the mock-up's very good, but did you take any photos of that from the street?
Yes, actually, all the pictures we can, if we can go to the next sheets. So these are actually, see the first one, top left, chimney visible. See that orange square? That is one of the chimneys.
Okay, so
that's a mock-up.
I'm just trying to understand. Okay, that is the mock-up. I couldn't tell
Yes.
if you had rendered that or if that was a mock-up.
Oh,
Okay, so
these
that's
are
the
all-
mock-up you.
Sorry. Go
Okay,
ahead.
that's the mock-up you showed us.
Mhm.
So what is the visibility issue that you're discussing with landmarks? Is it just that?
Yes, just chimney and the mechanical units, like there is a little bit of a mechanical units visibility from the Gros Street, which actually, honestly, from our photos, we couldn't see much, but he took his own photos, the preservationist, and I think at some point he's gonna share his own photos with us. So there is like a little bit of visibility. It's hard to see in between the trees, leaves as well. So so those are basically like you see the view 7 where the arrow is. He's suggested that he can see a little bit of the mechanical unit in that view. So we're still waiting for his pictures because from our photos, basically we just saw chimneys in 2 photos maybe. We didn't see
Okay.
anything else really.
That's fine. Anybody have any questions? Daniel?
Can we go back to the elevation, front elevation? Yeah, so I guess I was struck by, I mean, it certainly looks like it would be visible from, people in houses across the street. I mean, it might not be visible from the street itself, but it would be a substantially different, substantially different from the other, adjoining houses and visible from across the street. It strikes me as, out of character with that line of houses. And I'm not moved by the fact that there was another one approved across the street. I probably wouldn't have voted for that either. So I just would make that observation. It seems like a substantial alteration of a landmarked building that does not preserve its current character.
Okay. Thank you, Daniel. Jerry?
Let me just back up for a moment. There are 2 blocks in Cobble Hill, and Tompkins is one of them. Strong Place is the other. They're only 1 block long, very narrow, with all brownstones. Well, nearly all the buildings are brownstones. And these 2 blocks are very unique. The addition in the back in no way, shape, or form can be seen from the street. Whereas this addition and the deck that you're proposing in front will be visible and the people sitting outside and the furniture will become visible and alter the character of the building and the character and the quality of life of the people next door. But it's really going to alter what is a historic characteristic of this block. And I find it's really, after the addition that was approved for the back, this addition seems, in my mind, just to be excessive, but that has nothing to do with landmarks. You did not tell us the size of the addition, how far it was set back. You quickly went through the plan and didn't give us the size. I'm just curious. Is it the full width of the building? How far back is it?
We can go back to the plan.
And by adding a railing, is the railing visible from the
No,
street? Or I understand that the structure isn't, so I need to know where the railing sits in relation to the cornice and where the addition sits in relation to the front of the building in footage.
I have the CAD drawing open, so the
We can't hear you.
Good, I'm glad. I thought it was.
No. Go. If that's you talking, we can't hear you. I mean, maybe Abram should.
so if we can go back to the plan. Oh, maybe it was after, I think. Okay. So the rear setback is 3 feet from the back. And the front, but the square footage, let me start with square footage. I believe it's about 400 square feet.
No, what is the dimension of the addition, not in square feet?
The
It seems to be
overall?
the entire width of the building.
Oh, the width is the entire width.
And how many is from the front, where the doors are on the addition to where the wall is in the back? What are we talking about in distance, in footage?
Go, can you measure and tell me?
And what is the
No,
size
you tell
of,
me. Sorry.
and what is the
Nobody can hear
size
me?
of the deck?
Oh, now I can hear
Yes.
So from the length of the addition. Oh, you muted again.
So the length of the addition is 25 feet and 2 inches. And
It's 25, the length of the addition is 25 feet.
And 2 inches.
And how far is the front of the addition set back from the front of the building?
So the front is set back 12 feet and 3 inches from the facade. So the cornice is even 2 feet extruded from the facade. So that would be like 14 feet from the facade.
Yeah, we have a
14
very.
feet?
Mhm.
What's 14 feet?
From
From
the.
the face of the addition to the face of the existing facade is 14 feet.
Ever, why don't you repeat that?
Okay, so we have a setback 12 feet, 3 inches
From the back or
from
the
the
front?
from the front facade, because the cornice is projecting out another 2 feet. If you add the cornice, so from the tip of the cornice, the setback is about 14 feet.
Okay. And the setback in
Okay.
the back is about 3 feet.
Yeah.
It's exactly 3 feet, yes, requirement.
And I know you spent a lot of time discussing your chimneys. Are there any chimneys from the neighbors that have to be raised also?
Yes, so the two left chimneys, they are neighbors.
And
Chimneys.
we're going to go to some other question, 2 other questions. Have you spoken to those neighbors?
I don't believe those conversations started yet. I
And-
don't have much information, to be honest, but we will follow up, I'm sure.
And the other one is, as part of our requirements, you are required to leaflet both on either side and behind the building in question. Did you do that?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
Yes, the board's requirements are that you notify in these issues, the people on either side of the
Right.
subject building and behind that building get notified. Did you do that?
I'm not sure if it's been done yet, but we are definitely following all the protocols and we would
The
do all
protocols,
the
they haven't been
necessary.
invited to this meeting.
So, hold on. Evan, the leaflets are supposed to be handed out before this meeting.
I'm sorry?
The leaflets and the posting of the
Yes,
project
those were done.
is supposed to happen. Well, you just said you weren't sure it happened yet.
Oh, I thought we were talking about the construction process, like the more further steps. Yes, for
No,
this
let's
meeting,
just-
we did inform everyone with posters and printouts of the posters to all the neighbors at the rear and adjacent.
Okay.
So you followed the protocols that Ty sent you.
Yes,
Yep.
exactly.
Okay.
Okay.
It'll be interesting to hear what the neighbors have to say if they're here. But I find that this is really totally out of character. I understand there's one across the street. And I said the same thing then, I'll say it again. These roof additions with front decks are totally out of character with the historic nature of the district and especially of this small little block. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. If you put your hand down, Joanna?
Yes, I guess this is related to both Jerry's point that it's an extremely unique block, and that Daniel also pointed out how it will impact neighbors. I know we're supposed to take into account the street view, but I'm looking at that huge wall of windows in the front and picturing them illuminated at night. And it just seems like it'll just be a blast to whoever is looking at it from across the street. Wondering if there's any possibility of, not to make it look like the historic structure itself. I heard you saying the HPD wants to not be exactly matching, but something to avoid that huge block of glazing.
Okay, we'll definitely make a note of that and address your concerns next time we talk to them.
Evrim, I have another point of clarification. You
Mhm.
mentioned at the beginning that the materials, I thought you said that the extension would be coated copper?
At the rear, we were looking into options, so we have not picked one yet. So this is part of the presentation, but the proposed windows are steel windows, dark colored steel windows, and the facade could be either one of these colors in terms of what color metal we want to see. But at the rear, Landmarks definitely wanted to see a contrast. Because they want to emphasize the difference, the look between what's historical and what's new. Because the
And why
rear
not at the
setback
front?
is very little.
Oh, okay. All right, so when you come to us, you have to come to us with a proposal, not options. We're not
Mhm.
here to help you decide options. All right, there are other, Joanna, you're done, right? Okay, if you could put your hand down. I don't see anybody else's hands. If there's anybody from the community, oh, Daniel, is your hand going back up?
Hands up, David.
Madeleine Murphy has hand up.
Evrim,
I was gonna make a motion, so go ahead, Maddie.
Okay,
No,
so
I
Evrim,
was
just let me
I
call
was
the
going
people.
to say what David said. You can't come to us with options about what we want on the back. You're supposed to show us what you plan to do. And then we can say whether or not we agree with it. Okay?
Right.
Okay, thank you, Maddie. Daniel? All right, you're making a motion, sorry. So anybody from the community here? Ty?
Yeah, I'll hold off to see if there are any other comments.
If anyone on the attendee side is here from the community to speak on this, on 26 Tompkins, you can use the raise hand function and I'll promote you. I don't see any hands up at the moment.
Going once? Going twice? All right, Daniel, why don't you go ahead?
Okay, I would move to disapprove this application in its entirety. These owners acquired this house knowing they were acquiring a landmark building on a unique block with unique characteristics. It is my view that while they own the building